a wonderful column written by David Mitchell over the weekend in which I think he perfectly speaks to the young people who were polled the other week and said that they might prefer some kind of authoritarianism. And he points out that they just basically need to shut up and go away. That sort of condescension. Shall I read it out?
Yeah, no. Could you do a narration for us?
Could I do a narration?
An oration.
Oration. But yeah, read it aloud.
Just getting it up. Sorry, here it is.
Can you read it in an impression of David Mitchell?
What does he sound like? He's he's a bit stammery, isn't he?
I don't think I can do that.
That's all right.
Would you like to give it a go, Ed?
No.
No, actually, I'm fine.
For The Observer, he writes, "Here's a shocking finding, Gen Z. Democracy isn't perfect. According to a new poll, half of our 13 to 27-year-olds can't see the point of all those time-wasting elections and parliaments. Why do they not know that authoritarianism is worse?" Now, I'll kick it off by just saying I would say that speaks to your point. This is why people are angry.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's the arrogance, right, of David Mitchell saying to this younger generation who have lost faith in democracy, rather than seeking to understand why might this younger generation have lost its faith in democracy, and perhaps the reason might be because the organisation of our society is such now that I think we've broken the social contract with the younger generation on the most basic of levels, be that if you work hard, you should be able to get on, you should be able to get a job. You know, 1 wage should be enough to give yourself some secure housing. 2 wages should be enough to be able to afford to go on a nice holiday and buy a £20 bottle of wine at the weekend. That is not an extraordinary ask, right, for a society. But the way that the economy is organised, the way that wage growth has been stagnant, the way that the economy is filled with inflationary pressure, the way that if anybody wants to get on, they do so with £50,000 of debt tied around their necks, and as a result, stay at home, live at home with their mother and father, preventing them from forming really a meaningful romantic relationship with anyone. And they go, do you know what, actually, fuck this. I don't like the way this society is organised. Imagine my shock. Imagine my shock, David Mitchell. And that you've just said there, none of us are pretending that democracy is perfect. No one thinks that democracy is perfect. I think he quotes Churchill in the piece, right? You know, the worst the ones we have, but the best one we have, or whatever it is. Like, what? That arrogance and that ignorance, I think, is behind a lot of the political sentiment in this country, right? Whether it's that Gen Z are checking out from democracy, or indeed, like we were saying, the fervour around Brexit.
Can I say I think David Mitchell's not necessarily wrong? I think it is shocking. I think it's right to say that as a shocking statement. I think you're absolutely right as well in your assessment as to why. But I don't think being alarmist about this is incorrect either. I think that is a shocking thing to hear, that the majority of Gen Z are alienated from democracy. I don't necessarily agree with the tone of the column, but I don't think the response of going, Jesus fucking Christ, is wrong.
Yeah.
I think it's written from the perspective of someone, though, who's not in it, who's not experiencing the fallout of all of those factors that Ollie just laid out.
Yeah.
If it was...
I feel like we may have seen some polling of this nature before. This isn't the first time.
No, I think we talked about it quite recently.
Yeah, maybe when we've discussed it before, it hasn't been a majority, but certainly it's been an increasing and growing trend, right? Whether it's the demographic that shows the highest support for Trump in Britain, and admittedly that is still a minority of people, but it's younger men, that when we ask voters about whether they prefer democracy or, you know, authoritative figures that don't have to consult Parliament or have elections, and there's this growing support base for it. It's a good point you've made, actually, because maybe the first time I saw that stat, I was like, oh, Christ. And then, like anything else, it just kind of grinds you down, and you go, oh, well, it's reached a majority now. Do you know
There's nothing I can do.
Yeah, it's just...
There's the majority of people want it, and who am I to say they're wrong? Idiot Tony Blair.
But yeah, I mean, but it's actually the same sentiment as what Tony Blair was saying about Brexit. It is pretty much the same. But then this is why the left lose the argument. This is why the left lost the Brexit referendum, and why the left lost the recent American election, and even the Hillary Clinton one before that. It's because the left is guilty of thinking itself so ideologically and morally pure that it feels it doesn't need to engage in the conversation or the argument. And what David Mitchell has written there is pretty much, look, they're wrong, the kids are wrong, and that's it. There's no point in trying to tackle or unpick why they might feel this way. We're going to leave it at that.
Are you asking too much of David Mitchell? David Mitchell's a comedian. I don't really know what else he could have done.
I think if you're going to speak as if you know what you're talking about, then I'm allowed to criticise you and suggest that perhaps you don't.
No, I think you are absolutely.
But I do take your point that, I mean, it's just going to. Peep Show was already a tough watch.
Wrong.
Stop, Ava.
This is harder.
This was painful.
No, I love Peep Show, but it's what? What's happened?
You've been cancelled, apparently.
Oh no, I love Peep Show.
Right. But it's difficult to watch.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
Sorry, what I was going to say is his character in it is not particularly likable, right? That's the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then for him to turn out to be not very likable in real life as well. That's really frustrating.
Just watch Would I Lie to You. I think. Why am I just sticking up for David Mitchell? I do think the reaction to this column has been quite staggering. As in from people like, oh, David Mitchell, you idiot fascist. That Mitchell Webb look was bad.
That Mitchell and Webb look was really good, and I loved it.
It was brilliant. That was Fix Men's Mental Health. It's another series.
Yes, big time. But I've realised now, when you're on YouTube and you'll see there'll be a supercut of David Mitchell's best bits on Would I Lie to You or something like that, and it'll have 10 million views. I understand now where those views come from. From me. Well, partially from you.
Sorry, I just think we should be talking about David Mitchell isn't a political commentator. He's not in charge.
Sure, but you're at a point in time, right? You're at a crossroads where there is a really frightening rise in right toward hard right sentiment amongst young people in this country. You've got all of the economic conditions that are favourable to right-wing politics. I don't think that this sort of commentary is helpful. The conversation should be, okay, people listen to this podcast and they get really annoyed that we cover reform, right? You should be annoyed that reform are growing in popularity. If you just turn away from it, nothing is going to, it's going to continue down the way, the path in which most of Europe is travelling.
I think in a way it's sort of emblematic, right, in the problem of for sort of centrist liberal politics in this country, which is why can't they see how silly they are, right? And I've thought this recently when Starmer's been asked about the economy, and he's gone, well, PwC actually says the UK is one of the best places to invest right now, and it's that, in a sentence, is why you are fucked, son. Because most people do not think of PwC or what their view on the British economy is as A, relevant, or B, something that they even care about. At most, PwC is the company that's come into their company when it's been in administration and sacked everyone. That's their closest affiliation for it. And that sort of reverence for a Big Four-esque company, it doesn't do you any favours. And I think that in a similar way to this is the gap. It's the I think I spoke about it here the other week. It's old politics versus new politics, right? It's why can't you see that the IMF has rated us fantastic as a place to invest? humble worker ant, It's
all of those men down on Parliament Square today protesting how their tools were stolen and the Met couldn't do anything about it. Do you know what they're actually saying? They got £8,000 worth of tools stolen, and then they were shouting out to their wife, don't worry, darling, the IMF actually says we're the most attractive place to invest.
Growth.
Starmer out there speaking to the tradies, being well, actually, did you see PwC's latest report?
Reefs.
Yeah.
And David Mitchell.
Yeah.